I think this is our favorite topic in November because we're all looking forward to Thanksgiving. And what are we giving thanks for? And what does it mean to give thanks?
What we have.
Okay, what we have. We give thanks for every single thing we have and who we are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how do we, I think one of the most important things about gratitude is first of all feeling it. I know we have a lot of people and they have very short, pithy things to say, and they say everyone should develop an attitude of gratitude and go through life. Now, an attitude of gratitude, waking up every morning and being thankful for what is. Not what we want, not how we think it should be, but what is. And this time of year is when we, in the United States, stop to think about gratitude. Because we have the national holiday. We get out of school, work stops for at least 3 days, and we have Thanksgiving. And what are we thanking? As someone said, we eat the turkey. That's about it. And families get together. They get to see each other, whether they like it or not sometimes. It's oftentimes, though, a time when we, even if it's not our blood family, we have families that we join and make our family, like the Vedanta family. Like, oftentimes you have a group of people that you're especially close to, and they're your family when you're not with your, what I say, your birth family or your blood family. A family is not just defined by where you were born, who your parents are. Oftentimes that's not the family we're the most comfortable with, but the family that you develop and feel close to. It could be your spiritual family, it could be your work family, it could be, I don't know, what other groups do we have that create families? Oftentimes people, like-minded people who get together and express their gratitude for each other, for being there, for being part of your life. I had a great debate within myself when I thought, okay, I said I'd talk on gratitude, but what did I mean? And oddly enough, the story about that Ramakrishna had in the Gospel, where someone said, God should show more compassion. And Ramakrishna said, compassion? Why should he be compassionate? He's your father. There's no distance in there. There's no, it's not compassion, it's family. There's no distances. So I'm thinking, now who are we to show gratitude to? And what are we to show gratitude for? Everything that we have in life is basically karmically predetermined by ourselves. So, should we be grateful to ourselves for our karma? Should we be grateful to the people that we live with? Should we be grateful to the people and circumstances that we encounter? What are we really grateful for? Yes, I know we said grateful for everything, for our health, for our relative well-being, for relative peace on earth right now in our own environment. I'm not saying it's all over the world, but how much is really in our own environment. We stimulate ourselves by looking at what's happening in the rest of the world and saying, oh, everything's bad. But in our day-to-day life, how much of it are you encountering? We can be grateful for the fact that we have relative peace in our own personal lives. And I'm saying relative. We get up in the morning, we know we can go to work, we know that we have food, we know that we have relative comfort, we have everything we need. So we can be grateful that we just are who we are and where we are. A lot of people wake up in the morning and they don't have a place to live, they don't have food, and they don't know where anything's coming from. And even they can find something to be grateful for. They have their health, or they have at least, I'm alive today, and I can pursue the rest, do something to help myself, or not help myself. We can all find things to be grateful for. But why should we be? Isn't this our right as a human being? Isn't it? I think we all assume it is. I think we all make the assumption that as a human being, we are, I won't say entitled, although I do think we feel we are entitled to a relative amount of security. We have parents. Mostly we have a home. All of us have a home. So, do we take these things for granted? Do we take the people in our lives for granted? Many times we do. We don't even think about the people that we live with and are closest to, on how much they actually support us and help us get through life. We take them for granted because they're there. And until you lose one, you don't realize how much you've taken them for granted, or unless someone leaves for a while. So, I think, excuse me, I had a few too many snacks. I think we have to, when they say cultivate an attitude of gratitude, I think it helps every morning to wake up and think, I will appreciate the people who I live with. I will appreciate the people that I work with. I will try to appreciate and take pleasure in their company. I won't look for faults or go through like, I don't want to see anyone, I'm in a bad mood today. If we can try to do that, make an attempt to do that, it will help us to be able to express our gratitude to those people. I mean, how often do we don't have to thank them. We don't have to say thank you for that. That gets a little too formal and a little too you wouldn't thank your mother for giving you breakfast. This is an assumption your mother will give you breakfast, especially when you're about this tall. Now you might have to get it yourself when you're about this tall. But to just tell them you love them. Just telling people that you're close to, that you love them. Little tiny kindnesses. I have a friend who lost her son when he was about 22. And this was 40 years ago. She never once talks to anyone on the phone without closing it with, I love you. Because she wants that to be the last thing that she says to someone if she doesn't see them again. Now to me, this is expressing her gratitude for everyone who is in her life. And we can all think of ways to do this. it's a very small thing to say, I love you, can I do something for you, do you need some help? Of course, being short and white-haired, I get on a plane and I start to lift a bag up and I have about 6 people that go, let me do that. Of course, they're afraid I'm going to hit them in the head, but it's still little tiny things in life that express our gratitude for other people. It's not big things, it's not maybe bringing home some flowers unexpectedly to your wife, or making your husband something special that they really like. Not every day, not all the time. Taking care of the people in your lives. Just thinking of what would please them is expressing your gratitude for having them. And I think we all have to do that. I know living in a convent, we all have different jobs, right? And we can, when we get very, very busy, get into a mode where we just expect everyone to do their job. And we don't think much about it, unless something goes wrong. But you forget to say, that was really great the way you did that. It's just tiny little things. We get so absorbed in work or in duty or something that we just don't take that one extra minute to say, gee, that was nice the way you did that. And it doesn't take much. And people respond exceptionally well to it. I tend to be a person that just assumes everyone will do their job the way they're supposed to. And when I suddenly was the eldest in the convent and the most senior, I realized that one of my biggest failings was expressing my appreciation, saying it out loud to people when they were helping us. Because they would help, and I would say, that's wonderful, but then I would not say it again, because I do my work and just do it. And I realized that is in its own way a kind of selfish thing. I have to, as now the eldest one in the convent, express when things are done well. Express it, say it out loud. It doesn't take any effort, but it certainly encourages people who have not been there as long as I have been. Just to say, well done. Hey, we really got that one together. And also the ones where you say, oh my goodness, did we really blow it that day? How can we get that better? But not to assume that they know that I feel that way. I think we think, especially our closest, the ones we're the very closest to and have lived with the longest, we have a tendency not to express because you know each other so well. We have 4 of us have lived together for 40 years. No, I mean, we're not going to go around saying, golly, that was just delightful. I mean, gee, you did it. We're just not going to do that. But it doesn't hurt to say it once in a while. And I think the expression of gratitude is very important. Yes, I've always been a firm believer in actions speak louder than words. And so taking care of everyone and doing what you know is right, to me was enough. But it isn't for a lot of people. A lot of people need that little encouragement verbally. So if we express our gratitude, and I don't mean go overboard and make it like it's I won't say trivialize it, but to make it seem like it's put on. Just honestly, oh, that was wonderful. we have had a lot of interaction with the fire departments and police forces lately because of all these disasters. And what I've noticed in our whole community is now everyone stops when they see a fireman and says, thank you for being there. And they're a little embarrassed. And they said, no, we all do it together. But you know that it makes them feel appreciated. And they put their lives on the lines for us, whom they don't know. They don't have any connection to us. And they'll go out there and risk their lives. And the same thing, we forget these people who are sweeping the floor in the mall. Now, if they weren't sweeping the floor in the mall, it could get really filthy. So it doesn't hurt to say thanks. You're doing a good job. It really doesn't. It doesn't take anything out of our day or out of ourselves. But to thank all these people who have these kind of thankless jobs and recognize them as people. Just expressing the gratitude, that's all. Because it's an important job also. We couldn't quite survive. I just got back from a trip to Japan. And that's the cleanest country I think I've ever been in my life. They had a typhoon and leaves and stuff were down off the trees. There was not one out of place. Everyone in the community got out and swept. And I mean, you had 90-year-olds picking up leaves, keeping it clean. Everyone was helping. And it was just like, okay. They felt this kind of thing was important. And it was a way of showing their appreciation of the way the country's is run. They're all taken care of medically, they're all taken care of socially. So they do their part too, in an active way. And that's why I think it's important to express gratitude. But now how do we develop that feeling of gratitude? I think it starts with an appreciation of contentment in what we have. I think we do not feel grateful when we want more. When we fire up our desires and want more of everything, what are we going to be grateful for? Because we don't even recognize what we have. So I think the first thing is to recognize what we have and distinguish between what I need and what I want. I think a great deal of our desires and lack of gratitude arises from I want. I want, not I need, but I want. I want a new car. My car's running okay, but boy, I like that one. I want a new dishwasher. It's not mine's broken and I need one. It's that one will be so much more efficient. That one would be better. But those are all kindling our desires, which take away from our contentment with what we have. And when we're content with what we have, we can be grateful. We can be grateful that we have the opportunity to get more if we need it. There are many people that don't have that opportunity. We have been volunteering at a homeless shelter for women and children, and a lot of these people are not homeless. They've had one big expense that cropped up, one disaster, and they lost their apartments. And that's it. They're one paycheck away from being homeless. And when that paycheck is consumed by something else, then they're homeless and they're in the shelter. But having been there for I think 30 years now, even they express their gratitude every time we're there. This is a good meal. How far did you have to drive? We really appreciate that you come down to help us. So, and we don't expect that, but it's always kind of, oh, that's really nice that they said that. Of course I badger the little kids into saying please and thank you, because they're about this tall, and I say, what's the magic word? When they want something. Please. Because they should learn that. But how often, think of ways we can express our gratitude. Thanksgiving, you probably will get together with family. We used to try to express our gratitude for our devotees by cooking the whole Thanksgiving dinner. Now we have gone to, okay, it's going to be everyone's going to bring a dish. Everyone has to bring one dish, and that we'll have Thanksgiving all together. And what we found was they liked that better. They said, this makes us feel more a part of the family and not just a guest at the house. So that's the way we're doing it. Now they're calling up and saying, okay, so should I bring the sweet potatoes? And to include people in a familiar way, a family way, is to let them help you too. So part of gratitude is also learning how to gracefully accept help, accept people wanting to give you something. If you can't really be grateful until you also can reciprocate and receive. Many of us feel like, no, I can do that. I want to do it for other people, but how often can you honestly just, someone will say, I'll do that, and you can just say, instead of my usual thing, no, that's okay, I can handle it. Just say, thank you. That would really help me. That's a hard thing for people who are very independent and who have taken care of things all their lives. But even in work, and I'm finding it especially as you get older, you can't quite keep up with everything you did when you were 20. Not by a long shot. But it's still very hard to let younger people help you, because you feel like you're not doing your part. You're, I don't know, you're still strong enough to do that. You can do, but they want to help. And that's their expression of gratitude for you being there. And so it's very easy in that way to say, thank you, that would be a big help. It makes them feel better. You actually feel better about yourself. In allowing back and forth. So we can't be grateful if we don't, how do I want to put this? If we try to do for everyone all the time and not allow them to do for us, then what we're really saying to them oftentimes is, you're not capable of doing what I'm doing. Oftentimes it's our egos that get in the way. I can take care of this better. You may not do it the right way. So in allowing people to help us, we lessen our ego, and at the same time, they can feel good about themselves by offering to help. When I first started doing this, feeding the homeless, I felt really good about myself. I was doing this. And one of the other nuns, senior to me, she said, well, you know, you're doing it for yourself, not for them. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I stopped and thought about it, and I said, yeah, I am. I'm doing it to make myself feel better. Because there's a funny place where, yes, you want to do it for them, but there's also a very selfish attitude involved in it. And you have to look at both halves on everything in order to feel truly grateful. Now, after 30 years, I'm just glad we can do it. And that's the truth. I'm very glad we have the opportunity to do this. We feed 70 people every month. And it's not, I don't feel better about myself. I'm just glad that we can contribute. And I think most of our devotees who work down there feel the same way. I remember once we had one devotee, and she was buying the food and cooking it, and she was very wealthy. And she was bringing it. Someone criticized her cooking, told her that she hadn't cooked the chicken long enough. And she wheeled on them. This was years and years ago, and said something perfectly awful. And she came back to me and she said, I think I better quit for a while. I have no control over my mouth. So she took a 5-year break.
Who? The one who said?
The one who said this perfectly awful thing, which I'm not going to repeat. But she was so angry at this woman for criticizing her cooking. I mean, she was doing it out of the goodness of her heart. I personally was always kind of glad when they had a tiny bit of attitude left, because I thought, well, they haven't lost all their self-respect. They can still do a little something, stand up for themselves. But I'm grateful to have these opportunities. We do have opportunities to do things and to contribute. And instead of feeling as if we're being put upon or someone wants something from me, just be grateful that the Lord offers you an opportunity to help. I know that I'm talking to a group who gives service all the time, so I feel very silly doing that. I'm looking at a whole group of people who work very hard for others and keep this center going. So, and I know you don't do it for yourselves. You do it as service, and that helps us also be able to express our gratitude, because we can thank the Lord that we're in a position that we can do things. It's not, every once in a while when you get really, really tired, you go, I have to do this one more time, I have to cook another meal. But that's normal human behavior. And we are human. I don't think any of us have ascended to sainthood at the moment. Hopefully. I hope there's one or two out there, but we slip every once in a while. We can think of ways to be grateful. When you read Holy Mother's life and you see how she was always waiting to take care of, she was always there when someone came. They never had to wait for her. She was there. And I know Swami Prabhupada did once with one of his brother monks when they were probably 19, 20 maybe, and they decided to take off and go to Jairambati without telling anyone. And she was waiting up in the middle of the night for them to give them food because she knew her sons were coming. There was no
Text.
why didn't you call? Why didn't you let us know you were coming?
She did not say that.
Not at all. Come, eat. I knew you were coming. Here, then go to bed. And you can go back the next day.
Yeah.
I think we tend to get impatient and not look at things like that. We look at sometimes at things like that as interruptions of our time and our day. But when we look at things as acts of love that we can perform, when people come, we try to make them feel welcome. And I see it every day here. You make people feel welcome, like no one's a bother. Everyone is perfectly welcome. You follow Holy Mother's precepts perfectly. But often, I don't know how it is here in Pittsburgh. We can't drop in on people anymore. When I grew up, everyone could, if you wanted to go see one, you just dropped in. You knocked on the door, didn't call ahead, didn't make arrangements. You could just drop in on your neighbors. Now, Lord, it's a wonder they don't call the police. Because they're not expecting you. So, and in that kind of situation, it becomes distancing, very distancing. But we used to just, if you're not home, that's okay. If you are home, we'll chat. Times change, and we have to change our behavior somewhat with it. Some things I don't think we should change our behavior with. I think we should always try and welcome people and feel grateful that we can have the opportunity to talk to them, to see them. How many people don't have anyone to come to their house? You're saying with this new Indian senior center, people are lonely because they don't drop in on each other. They don't have a close network of friends. And so they have to go outside. And another problem here in our country is, what do we do with old people? This is a problem we're having in the convent and the monastery. What do we do with the really old ones who can't take care of themselves anymore? We don't have the facilities for taking care of them, don't have 24-hour care, don't have hospitals or Arogya Bhavan like they have in India. So what do you do with them? Damn, I'm about to be one. But it's very difficult because everyone knows how expensive it is in this country to take care of older people who cannot take care of themselves. Independent, that's a different thing. But when they get to the point of bedridden or need constant 24-hour care, that's way different in this country. So these are things, without a close network of friends where you can, interact and people check on each other, do that kind of thing. Just take a little care of each other. It's not, none of us can do the 24-hour care. That's impossible. But to let people know they're not alone. That's also showing gratitude for the fact that we're still able to do it. All these are expressions of gratitude for our own advantages or positions. Helping others is always an expression of gratitude. I'm able to do it. So, in Thanksgiving, we codify it. It's a good time to get in touch with everyone and tell them what you feel. Christmas is an even better time. But to do it from January to November is also a good time to do it. Don't just think of it in those 2 times, November and December. Think of these people, think of people all year round. Maybe they don't have a visitor. I don't know. Some of our members have now started doing hospice. Not the hospice where they take care of people, the entertainment portion. I have a good friend who used to have a TV show, and she said, well, I volunteered at hospice, but I don't take care of them, I don't do anything. I go and give their caregivers a 3-hour break, and I entertain them. I talk to them. And that's all she does. And I thought, shoot, that's a good thing. She says, I can't lift people, I can't take care of them, I don't know anything about medicine, but I can talk. Mm-hmm. And she said, and I have time. And I'm able to do it. Now she's almost 80. And she's started this 2 years ago. And she's made a lot of mistakes. She took people out that weren't supposed to go out of the house because it confused them. But she took them for rides. And then got disciplined. You're not supposed to do that. And she said, so I don't anymore. But it's still the fact that she feels that she should give back some because she feels that she has a good life, she has good health, she doesn't have to worry about these things, and she said it's something I can do to help people. So that's her expression of gratitude to humanity. Not someone she knows, not any, just humanity, being a human being. And I think we can all think of, if we think hard about how we can contribute to make ourselves feel also like we're doing something worthy, but helping someone who needs help at the same time. We have another program in Santa Barbara called Big Brothers. That's what it's called. It's a mentoring program where working people, retired people, anyone, they mentor a child who doesn't have an ideal situation. 1 hour a week. And it makes tremendous differences in these kids' lives. You just do 1 hour a week. You go in after school and take them out to do whatever you like. Take them to museums, take them to places they wouldn't have the opportunity to go. Our neighbor does, a little Mexican girl, and her home life is horrible, absolutely horrible. But she's now got the idea that she can finish high school and has a possibility of going to college because she's seen a whole other way of living over the past 5 years. And this is 1 hour a week. That's it. We have no idea how we can express gratitude and how we can help until you really start to look into it. And you don't have time when you're working full-time and you're raising your own kids. But retired people, and when you get a little extra space, everyone has an extra hour a week. Not a day, a week. And that's all my friend she puts in 2 to 3 hours a week relieving a caregiver. It's very little out of our lives, but it has a tremendous ripple effect in helping other people. We just have to look at ways to express our gratitude. I know I'm now I'm grateful for your invitation to come. At first I was like, how am I going to talk? But I am a talker. And you give me enough coffee and I can talk forever. Just give me another half a cup and we'll be up till midnight. And it helps if you talk also. But, I mean, gratitude is, how do we even start thinking about it? I know one way. At the end of the day, I think it was Maharaj said to go over everything you've done and take just a brief rundown on what you've done that day and what you want to change and what you don't want to change. How did the day go? How many times how many times did I get angry? How many times did I behave the way I want to behave? Just a quick rundown. Now, another friend of mine said it was her review and regret. She said, I do review and regret every night. And then I call people and tell them I'm sorry. And I said, please don't call me, it's too late. I don't care. I didn't take it seriously. But to go over what we have, the way to start gratitude is to go over and think, what good things happen? What do I have to be grateful for? Don't look at the negative things in the day. Look at the positive things and say, I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for that. And actually, a lot of people, to start with, keep a little diary. If you even think, we had some Jewish friends who had, at every Seder on Friday night, they had the family and they always invited some outside people. And they invited us to participate. And the first thing we all had to do was sit down and say 3 things that we were grateful for that week. And I thought, that's a really good thing to start if you've got small children, because they're always, they're busy, they're doing things, they don't think about what they have to be grateful for. They just are busy living. But their kids, from the time they were about 3, had to work up something to say they were grateful for. A lot of times it was a toy or it was something. But at least they got the habit. And I think it's a decent one to cultivate. Just thinking about these things. So much of our life goes through on kind of autopilot. We get habits going and we just go along and do it autopilot. Until there's a disaster or a bump in the road. And then suddenly we have to take control again and fix it. But autopilot works for a great deal of life. It smooths out the bumps until there is one. Becoming more conscious of what's going on and more conscious of our choices of what we're doing is quite an improvement it's an improvement in our daily life, but it's a vast improvement in our spiritual life. To make conscious choices and conscious decisions. My grandmother always used to say, count 10 before you answer someone. And I used to think, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my whole life. But later on, I read in Vedanta, don't react immediately, give a space. Well, that's count 10. Count 10 before you answer. So
now you have to count 10 because all the scam phone calls.
I know.
I made a mistake. I gave my social security number and everything.
Never do that.
I did that. She said, don't tell, otherwise he will lose everything. I was going to get the plane and I told them everything.
Oh no.
Really?
Oh dear.
Scam.
Yeah.
Scam.
No,
Oh, then then airport, I went to the airport and I called the police.
Yes, good. But don't ever give your social security number. Although they probably know it already anyway.
I got scared. I totally
Yeah.
got scared. No, they said that from today, your social security payment will be stopped.
They'll never call you on the phone.
Yeah.
They will never call you on the phone. They can't work that fast.
They can do it.
Seriously, they won't call you.
Too many scammers.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you have to think of all these things.
You have to count 10.
You have to count 10. You have to think before you react. And if you can't think before you react right away, then as soon as you've reacted and it's over, go, why did I do that? Why didn't I stop and think? Because most of it is just simply pre-programmed stuff, either past karma or events in this life, that you have developed habits. And we can change any habit. We can change habits. It's very, very difficult. Extremely difficult. But it is possible. You stop doing the one and you start replacing it with something else. And it's always I always say it's a replacement. You have to not repress what you don't want, but change its direction. Change its direction. Give it a slight curve in the right direction. Because squashing it down, it's just going to get stronger with your resistance. And it'll raise its ugly head sooner or later. So, someone once said, do you know the difference between repression and sublimation? And I thought, yeah, actually I do. When they said, so try it. Yeah. And in all of Vedanta, they say exactly the same thing. Give it a twist towards God. Don't, stop everything. Just give it a redirect it. Any kind of habits that you have, just a little curve to go for God. So, I don't know. I feel like we should probably do at least 15 minutes of meditation to think about what we've been talking about, or just think about it quietly without me going on and on and on and keeping adding more things. Because so many times when we're talking about things, it's difficult to sort them out. It's not difficult, but it's like you're bombarding me with too much stuff right now. So if you give me 10 minutes to think about it. However, if I were at Swami Ishtananda's center, he would say, you haven't talked long enough. He had me give a lecture once and I talked for 45 minutes, which is what's my usual, and he got up and he said, you didn't talk long enough, so now I have to talk. I'm like, okay. I'm from the guru who only gave 45-minute lectures. As he said, if you can't say it in 45 minutes, 2 hours won't help you. Now, I don't know whether I've said it yet or not. Should we be grateful?
Yes.
And what do we have to be grateful for? Practically everything. I mean, seriously, when I stop and think of how particularly my life could have gone, I was growing up in the 50s, and the United States in the 50s was pretty hidebound and very, very repressed. And so 60s came along, Vietnam came along, women's lib came along, civil liberties came along, civil rights. All of these things came along, and Eastern religions came along. I mean, the Beatles went to India. So, and rock and roll happened. Now, with all of those 5 things, wonderful options in life. It could have, and drugs. We can't forget drugs. Drugs came along too. We didn't have those before. We had alcohol, but not drugs. So with all those beautiful options in life, all of our lives could have taken almost any direction. We could have gone downhill, uphill. We were not all that concerned with monetary success or striving in our fields. We were much more focused on changing the world. Now, for me, it's the way I feel. I am so grateful that my life went this way and didn't go one of those other ways. And that's strictly the grace of God. Because in those days, everyone was trying everything. Mm-hmm. And it was just part of growing up. It could have gone in any direction. And I often think back, and I should have been dead with some of the things I did. I took tremendous risks with cars and with skiing and with all kinds of things. And without the grace of God, I really should have been dead because I was not taking care of myself. And I really wasn't taking any precautions. Nothing. I'd go out and drive down mountain roads in the dark with pretending to be a race car.
Oh my.
Didn't know how to, we just did it for fun. So, by all counts, I should be dead. But by the grace of God, no. And then you think, what more do I have to be grateful for? I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to encounter Swami Prabhavananda. That changed my entire life. Not out of any choice, not of any cognitive search of my own. I mean, sure it's karmic, but it's when you think about how you would direct your life. I was not directing it in that direction. It's strictly the grace of God.
Oh, you need a microphone.
Yeah.
There is a microphone to be given. Please, pass it down. Quick.
Turn it on.
Remember, the world is listening to you through those videos.
Sorry, but you just answered my question. You were talking about karma, and my question was, you're meeting Swami, your guru, wasn't it grace? You said it was karma, but I was thinking, couldn't it just have been grace? And what's the difference?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I really do. I definitely think it's both. It's karmic. The way I would probably explain it, it's karmic that I had the opportunity and the grace of God that I recognized it. Because many people had the opportunity. I used to, when I first encountered Swami, I used to drag all my friends up to meet this God-man walking on earth. And what they saw was an old man. That's all they saw. So, karmically, yes, I had the karma that got me in the position, and I had the grace of God to know what I saw.
Did your friends see your guru as an old man because they didn't have a relationship with him and you had one, a karmic relationship or a past life relationship?
I don't have any idea. I just thought they were really missing the opportunity of their lives. But, so that's, when we stop and look back over our lives, you can see all of the things that you have to be grateful for. Often, more often than you see it in the immediate happenings. I mean, it takes practice to see the ones that are happening right now. I'm grateful I didn't, this or that. But when you look back over a long period of your life and you think, those were critical points, in which direction did I go? There's always points in your life where there's a choice and you actually have often 2 ways or 3 ways paths you could take. Now, is it your super intelligence that got you on the right path, or is it the grace of God, or is it your karma? Do you do it consciously, or do you unconsciously make the right choice? Especially when you're younger. I don't know. I haven't met a lot of young people who consciously can direct their lives. They can direct their studies for certain indirections. But when you have that option of, do I do this or do I do that? Do I follow this inclination to open up this spiritual path because I admire this person, or do I continue with my life as I'm living it? Do I change my profession? I mean, we have those points in our lives when something big comes up. And I can say honestly, I did not make a I made a conscious decision to move to Santa Barbara. But I didn't have any idea what was going to happen. I just knew I had to do that. And it wasn't, I'm going to achieve this when I just had to do it. And I think we have those. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has had that in their lives. I know I'm not.
By chance, quite by chance, Madeline asked a question which comes to this bigger issue. We always fight, almost in every retreat, at some point somebody will ask, regardless of what the topic of the retreat is it our karma or is it divine grace? That's a standard problem.
I know.
It is this. And the answer seems to be, it totally eludes me, Kunal, it eludes Kunal, but the Gospel says, Ramakrishna says, you have to first row your boat and you have to take trouble to put up your sail, then the wind of grace will catch the sail.
Yes.
So apparently it's a mixture. You cannot not do your own thing and this. So I am trying to think of her question and then say, therefore if I am totally karmic, then I don't have to be grateful. I am supposed to have done this, so what is to be grateful about?
But
on the other hand, I don't believe that.
But that's a little different, Swami Pravitrananda and Swami Prabhavananda every summer had this debate between self-effort and grace.
Yes.
And rowing your boat and putting up your sail is self-effort. And Swami Pravitrananda always took the side of self-effort. And Swami Prabhavananda always took the side of grace. Okay, and the conclusion that they always got to in the thing, we all have to do the self-effort to catch the grace. Now karma
Yes, I misspoke.
Sorry.
That's when I say karmically, I was put in a position. It was no self-effort that this happened, that I met Swami Prabhupada. It was, in my mind, a karmic thing, because I wasn't looking for any spiritual path. I wasn't pursuing any particular. I was a school teacher. I was going to I had a job teaching school. That was fine. I probably wouldn't have done it my entire life, but that's what I was doing then. But I had no burning desire to change my life. So as I say, it was karma that brought me to meet him. I would say my self-effort was saying, we're moving. I'm moving to Santa Barbara. And it was the grace of God that I met him. If I had to analyze what it was in my life.
I'd like to clarify the definition of grace. So this is a question. Can we say that grace or God's grace is something that we cannot earn or deserve, but it's more of a gift? So is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Okay, so no one is worthy of it. It just comes. It's given.
It's always there.
So it's not from self-effort.
It is through self-effort, because in order to recognize the grace, it takes a little self-effort to get you in to recognize what you're given.
To be prepared to accept it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But is it not that
Yes.
is it not
No,
that
turn it on also. That is the self-effort.
I'm echoing, so.
is it not that the grace is not always in terms of what we are given, but also what we are not given?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the grace of God saves you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what
Yes.
we did not get.
But that,
Because it can be very easy to say, I didn't get it, I didn't have grace of God, but that's just because we wanting it, not knowing that bite was not the right thing for me, which my little ego, big ego in this little body didn't know.
yeah. But when you say not getting, the gift is not receiving. The gift is the status quo. Sometimes that's where it's a definition in how you feel. Oftentimes, like when you actively want something and you don't get it, that can be the grace of God, because it's saving you from yourself. Like they always say, that old statement, be careful what you pray for, because you might get it.
Yeah.
Be careful what you pray for. And oftentimes we think we know what's good for us, and we'll pray for that. And it's not what is good for us. And the grace of God will not give it to us. And but with that grace of God, we'll also have the ability to realize that was much better that I didn't get it. Eventually, we will look over that thing. Thank you, Lord, for not giving that to me. But we do have to put in the self-effort of clarifying our thinking, knowing ourselves, knowing our motivations, or at least trying to recognize them. I can't say we may know them, but if we start recognizing and seeing what we're doing, just the recognition of it will make a huge change. And the self-effort would go into changing those habits, perhaps starting a very regular routine for the day. Now I know I fought routine my entire life until probably 10 years ago, and found out that routine was one of the most freeing things in the entire world. If I did my routine, just bam, 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 I had so much free time it wasn't even funny. I mean, I wasted more time fighting the routine than anyone can imagine. I would complain about it. As soon as you settle down and just do it, you have time is unlimited. You have so much time to do everything you ever wanted to do or needed to do. But when you don't have a routine, and it tends to be chaotic, and you don't have our routine is convent oriented. I mean, meditation in the morning, karma yoga, meditation, karma yoga, or study, meditation, bus. Well, you get those things done, and you've got, okay, I've got time to pursue this. I can actually take up a hobby, which everyone should have, something that just gives them pure pleasure. Not necessarily anything that is something that gives you pure pleasure. Not necessarily anything that flower arranging, taking a walk, painting, something that you can get involved in, sitting down and writing poetry, some kind of endeavor that we would normally call not frivolous, but not necessary to productivity. But everyone should have some hobby that gives them real pleasure that they can just do. Swami Prabhupada and our Swamis also, yeah, you should have something that you really like to do. You don't ignore the routine for it, but you can do it when you want to. And it's important because you have to feed all parts of your being. So, setting a routine will help give you more freedom. With more freedom, you can
Have more time.
More time, and you can look at everything and know what is, where the grace of God has come in, what I'm grateful for, all of those things. If it's self-analysis, you can do that. Personally, that gets a little boring, but not boring, but I can do it for so long, and then I kind of, okay, now we need to take a walk and look at the outside. Going to art museums, just taking a little break to expand your brain, expand what you're looking at. But keep the basic routine every day. It actually sets the habit that you can really break other habits. And it's hard to do it first. I remember it was really hard to quit work and get into the shrine at noon for me. And because it was like a break in the day, which, why am I doing this? But actually it was extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. Because it took you out of the external world and put you into the spiritual world. And having it 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at noon, 1 hour in the evening.
1 hour each time?
When we first joined the convent. It's not that way now. But
the last one is before going to the bed?
No, 6 o'clock in the evening. we all go up to the temple for arati, and then we meditate till 7. And then any extra, I mean, if you wake up in the middle of the night, sure, do some more jogging, do a little more meditation, but not as you feel. But it's not, it was mandatory to do those 3 hours when we first joined the convent. And you do it for 5-10 years, it becomes a habit. And you don't particularly, you feel uncomfortable if you're not doing it.
When is the morning, 6 o'clock evening, and then noontime or afternoon?
No, noontime we did. But that was like, the only people that didn't do it then were the cooks. Because we have hot food offering every day in our small shrine. And so you had to get the hot food down to Thakur-in-law at 12:45. But at that same time they considered the cooking for Thakur-in-law as good as meditation, because you were cooking with the full intention that all of it was going down to the shrine to the Lord. So, but as I say, but anyone can set up their own routine. And when you're in school or working, morning and evening, meditation or sitting. I remember one of our monks said he couldn't promise to do it for 15 minutes. He said, I can sit still. So he set up a routine for himself where he sat down in front of his shrine for 2 minutes in the morning. It's not a big deal, is it? 2 minutes, but he did it every single morning. He sat himself down. Now he doesn't have a problem. But he said, when I started, if I had started a routine that I couldn't keep, I would have abandoned the whole thing. So you really have to stop and look, can I do this? And what can I really do? And we didn't have a choice, because our major choice was I moved into the convent. And therefore, this is it. But before I moved into the convent, I was teaching school, and you go, and every single morning I would get up at, what time would I have to get? Probably 5:30, and sit for half an hour, because I had a commute to teaching. And then in the evening, I would sit for about 15 minutes. But I could keep that up. And it's like exercise. It's just like exercise. You don't want to set up a regime for yourself that is so exhausting that you're going to give it up after 2 weeks. You want to set up a reasonable regime that you can keep up. It's the same as when ladies want to lose weight. Don't go on a super duper diet that you can never keep up. Change your eating habits a little so that you can keep it up. And that's with everything. So, and to my mind, that also, if we work hard at that, the grace of God comes in and we're successful at it. But we have to do the work of setting up the situation in all aspects of our life. It's, as the Dalai Lama said, no fast, no easy. It's just plain hard work.
Work hard.
No fast, no easy.
There are 2 sets of questions. One was yours.
That's okay.
Done. Okay, one is there.
And then I'll also ask about
Oh, you want to?
Yeah. No, you go ahead first.
No, you go first.
Okay.
Remember, in the afternoon you didn't listen to me.
Yeah. So,
I agree that routine has its place.
Is it on?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that routine has its place, but it also, it's kind of the attachment to security in a lot of ways. Like, I feel it kind of robs life of its the surprise. Like everything seems the same, so you're not really experiencing. You need a routine for certain things, like brushing your teeth and stuff is a good thing to have, but also like embracing the unknown is also very important and going into that. So I guess where's that line at in a way? Like where do you have?
Well, you brush your teeth every day.
Yeah.
Maybe twice a day.
Yeah.
Okay. It wouldn't take twice a day right after you brush your teeth or before. Sit down for 10 minutes and think of God, and that's all.
Mm.
And then you can still embrace spontaneity during the day. It doesn't. It actually increases the pleasure of spontaneity because you're not so attached to how you think it should be.
Yeah.
You've given up.
Yeah. It's true spontaneity, not just the idea of spontaneity.
Yeah. So often, because as I say, during the 60s, it was be like a child, be childlike, have the spontaneity of a 5-year-old. Mostly we were just...
Exactly.
It's almost a hindrance when you try to make it happen.
It does. It's not real. It's not the thing. I feel that I can be more spontaneous now than I ever was, and go with whatever comes up. And what comes up, it's great, and I can really enjoy it. Yeah, it's not. But setting that routine has given me that freedom.
You say me more like in terms of spiritual goals, that a routine is more vital than like going down the same street, same way from home from work or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I understand.
You see, somehow even the world becomes more vibrant. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you don't become more detached and more indifferent. You actually become more aware. And with that awareness, you can actually be more spontaneous and you can enjoy more things because you're open to more things. I know it sounds kind of strange, but it's true. Okay, I went to Japan on a tour and they called us the day before we were supposed to leave, and they said, "Can you leave today? There's a typhoon coming tomorrow." Mm-hmm. And we went, "Oh, yeah, we can leave." So we flew in the day before the typhoon. But because of the total routine in my life, I knew that everything was going to be fine. Mm-hmm. Everything was going to go along. I was free to leave. I had everything in place. I didn't have to do any, oh my God, I've got to do this and this and this and this and this before I leave. So that's why I say it kind of frees you up. Mm-hmm. You're more available for the spontaneous.
Yeah. See that. You want to ask your question?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Another question was based on the karma and grace of God thing. So in non-duality, I feel that there is no causality, that things just kind of happen. So like, how does that tie into that? Because maybe in our human experience, I'm thinking that we give a reason for things, but if there isn't causality for anything, then how would that kind of...
Well, I would say, as I said, we do believe in karma.
Yeah.
And nothing really happens without you making your karma. Mm-hmm. So everything that's happening in your life is either from karma in this life or karma in a past life. The reason you're here is because of some kind of karma you did in previous lives. and you have perhaps opened up to it or encountered it and recognized it. But otherwise, like I say, people that I dragged up to meet my guru, and they didn't see anything, nothing. They said, oh, that's nice. But karmically, karma, I'll give you another example. Swami Sarvapriyananda was at a class. Did I do this earlier or yesterday? I don't remember. And he was doing a college class in Santa Barbara, and he said, we are the authors of our lives. Everything that is happening to us is of our own making. No one is doing anything to us. No one is causing anything to happen to us. We have directed this in our past lives. And this kid got up and he was, do you mean to tell me that if I stepped off a curb and a bus hit me, it would be my fault? And Swami said, yeah.
So in that way, it's more of free will based. It's not predetermination or something.
It's not predetermination. That's part of what the whole reason for taking up spiritual life is, to not make new karma, to unwind the past karma, redirect it, and possibly, it's in Buddhism to get off the wheel of karma, so you don't have to do birth, rebirth, birth, death, rebirth. And the way we do that is by making conscious choices. And someone says, well, how do you know what choice to make? Well, you look at it and say, does this lead me closer to my goal, closer to what I want to be, or does it take me out? Is this what is really good for me, or is it just pleasant? Because every one of us deep inside knows what's good. And we often choose the pleasant instead, because we're human beings. And I chose the pleasant quite often when I was young, rather than what I knew was good. But I knew I was doing it. But that's what I wanted to do then. And then, we do know, and if we know that we are writing our life, our future life, we get to choose how we do it. Doesn't mean you can't have fun still. Oftentimes you can have more fun.
Mother, just for this clarification wise, God's grace is always there. It's us to recognize it, or it's us to catch it, or that's where so again that theme came about a number of times. The self-effort part of it. But sometimes, unfortunately, what happens, I think, is that people get so caught up in the divisions of is this attributed to karma, is it grace, then they're losing the bigger thing. Sometimes we get too caught up in the minute. It's good to have clarification, but in the end, does it matter?
I know. It's not part of my working everyday life.
Right.
I try to make choices on doing what's good, the good things that will lead me closer to God. But that's about as far as I go. And I try and keep up my meditation, my routine, my japa. And then I go to movies sometimes, I go to read books, I do what I, go to art museums, have fun in life too. My fun is a different, it's not what I did when I was 20.
That's right. Please, go ahead.
But, it's still fun.
It's on.
I have a little question.
Is it on?
In situation of adversity, does it take a greater effort to accept the gratitude the same way we accept for any betterment?
yes and no. It depends on how much work you've already done, because oftentimes even in adversity, when Devi Prana was diagnosed with MS and can barely walk, we said, well, how do you feel? And she says, closer to God. Closer to God. So it truly depends on what you've done. Another friend who had been in Vedanta many years, she was in the flood zone when they had the flood, and she was trapped in her house overnight with the house full of mud, and they had to send a helicopter in to get her out. And she said, yeah, I really know for a fact that the grace of God saved me, and none of it matters. None of that matters. So I will say you can recognize it in adversity if you have developed that consciousness. If you haven't developed the consciousness, often the grace of God will give you a hint. But when you have worked hard for 40, 50 years in your life, and you have that as a part of your very being, then yeah.
Thank you.
It's got to do with faith also, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't answer.
That's okay. Kunal, I didn't hear it. My ears plugged up for the plane.
I think it's got to do with faith also, that at that point in the moment of adversity, if you have that faith.
Well, of course, I mean, yes, but see, they're also intertwined.
Right.
If you've been following a spiritual path, been doing what consciously and with intensity, of course you have faith, because your faith is developed. You don't have doubts about it anymore. And so that alleviates all the worry. And sure, you're going to react to the immediate problem. I mean, I'll tell you 2 reactions. It started raining the night of the huge flood in Santa Barbara. I woke up because it was so noisy. There were boulders rolling down. I opened up my curtains and I went, this is totally impossible, because there was a fire going at the same time. This rain was pouring down. And so I turned over and went back to sleep. I said, not possible.
Open your window, saw it, and then not possible.
Not possible. Not possible. So my dog and I turned over and went back to sleep, okay? Now, one of the other nuns who was on a different, lower on the property, it sounded like the whole mountain was coming down. So she leapt out of bed, got her clothes on, and ran outside with her dog and said, the whole mountain's coming down. So she looked at me and she said, didn't you hear it? And I went, yeah. But I saw those flames and I knew it wasn't possible. Well, it was, because a house had blown up. There'd been a gas line. And so there were flames in the middle of this downpour. But my mind wouldn't take it in. It was just, it's not happening.
I had a patient, this is 13 years ago, I had a patient who I called for a semi-urgent appointment because I had just found out that his cancer had spread, and I was going for surgery myself next day, so I didn't want to wait until I came back, and I didn't want to tell him on the phone. So I called him in, he came, I delivered the news, talked to him about the course of action, and then he said, but what was the rush? Why did you want me to come right away? And I said, well, I'm going in for surgery. And he is really tall. I was 6'2", and he stood up and he said, can I give you a prayer? He was a pastor. And I said, sure. And as he was giving me a prayer, I was looking at him and I felt, I just broke a news that your cancer has spread.
Yeah.
And you have in you the strength and faith to hold my hand and give me prayer. And I think that is very powerful.
It's amazing. And everyone is so different, but it does go back to, do you have faith? And we do. I mean, what was it Swamiji said? The only thing that is anti-spirituality is indifference. Agnosticism, atheism, fine. Because, like Ravana, they're thinking of Rama all the time. It may not be in the way that a bhakta would think, but God is on their mind all the time, whether he's there or not.
I had heard once, I've heard that faith is a gift and you have to receive it, whereas grace is always there for you to tap into it. So you can either receive the gift or not.
That's true.
And I think some of us have received it and some haven't.
Well, you have to know, you have to recognize it. If you recognize it, you'll usually receive it. So many people don't recognize it. But faith grows. Faith grows, it becomes a habit. You can replace, instead of doubting all the time, you can keep telling yourself, no, the Lord will take care of this, the Lord will take care of this. And soon that becomes the habit until it is your true, honest feeling. As Swami Sheshananda used to say, the practice is the goal. So you practice what the goal is until you achieve it.
When you went to Santa Barbara and, for you, this was, happened. But your friends and the family did not feel the way you felt about, the grace or karmic.
No.
Did they ever? Your friends, did they come back?
It took them a while. It took them a while. All parents would panic if their only child in the 1960s decided to join a cult. Which it was. It was a cult.
Now, because of your joining the monastery, did your friends and the family got the benefit later on?
Yes.
To choose a better path, or
I won't say that. I wasn't trying to do that. But I think all parents want their children to be happy, and that's all they really want. To be happy in their lives, to be satisfied in their lives. And my parents saw that was, and they said, then you have full approval, we back what you're doing. It took a while, and they remained staunch Episcopalians till the very end, and it wasn't an issue. It just simply stopped being an issue. And my friends, many of them, we drifted apart, but only because we had different interests. And I have all new friends who have the same interests. Like they say, when you take up this path, oftentimes your old friends you're not comfortable around them. They're not too comfortable around you. Because friends are friends because they're like-minded. And when your mind and path changes, you find like-minded friends. But it doesn't mean I gave up. I still am in contact with people I went to the 7th grade with.
Sure.
And people I was in college with. Now we're not super close anymore, but we have never lost contact with each other. And we'll call each other once in a while and talk over what's happening in your life, what's happening in yours. Is everything okay? But close friends are now Vedantists. Because you have more to talk about. And you have more in common. But it doesn't mean you give up everything. No.
And I know, like, when you do the japa, so little things like, whenever there's a stop sign going to work, I do the japa and I don't get irritated that it's not coming, the red light is not going away,
Right.
So before it could be, okay, when is the green light going to come, Yes, I need to go. So I think the little things like
that, constant remembrance.
Yeah. It does change, so
it does
before
change.
it's like, oh, when does this go away? I need to go,
Yeah.
It slows you down.
It does. And it actually ties you up. Makes you frustrated, makes you angry by the time you get to work.
Yeah. So, but now it doesn't happen.
Right.
It doesn't happen. So I wait for the red light to go and then I go.
Yeah.
Were you the only child?
I'm sorry?
Were you the
Yes.
Wow.
I know. Wow.
Keep the microphone in your hand. You are the in charge.
It's on. It's on.
Yeah. It was a little hard on them. But when they got very old and couldn't take care of themselves anymore, I was going back and forth to Seattle, and I said, well, you tell me when it's time for you to move to Santa Barbara so I can be with you every day. And it took about 6 months, and my dad said, yeah, it's time, we'll move to Santa Barbara. So they did, and they were in a retirement. My mother was in a nursing home because she was bedridden, and my dad was in a retirement community right in town, not far from her, so they could see each other every day. And I went in every day, and Swami Swahananda just looked at me and he says, only child, huh? And I went, yeah. Your life will be very complicated for a while. And it was. But also, I say by the grace of God, I had the convent. And whenever I went out every day to see them, make sure everything was going well. And all my sisters in the convent picked up anything that I couldn't cover. I mean, that's the kind of thing, and I mean, I could not have done it without them. So, grateful for that, grateful for all of these things that
God gave you.
God gave me, yes. It could have been much more complicated, but it wasn't. And now it's after 9 o'clock. And
It's 9 p.m.
We'll not have any more coffee, okay?
I apologize. Excuse me.
No more coffee.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for a delightful retreat all day today. We have programming for tomorrow, 11 to 12:30. Vedanta children, all the children of Thakur and Ma are welcome. And the children, we are all children of one Thakur, so it's also for the adults, numerically adults. And a couple of things, after this we'll be going downstairs for dinner, but a few announcements I have for the next part. Swami Krishnaprana